So it's nothing sacred. Yeah, I'm gonna make another change to a kind of an iconic part of this car. This one's subtle, very, very subtle, and it involves the hood scoop. I'm gonna keep this same hood scoop shape, but I'm gonna add some elements to it. And they're functional, so that maybe makes me feel a little bit better. But they're just another place where I'm gonna flex a little creativity, making this car my own. And this was a lot of fun. This project, this part turned out to be a really fun project. Working with fiberglass and integrating some metal mesh, some perforated steel is always kind of fun stuff to work with. So that's part one of this build, and then the other part I'm doing. You're going to watch me put together the front grille assemblies, and I wanted to cover up I guess cover the entrance to the radiator, both to protect the radiator and also to kind of finish that off a little bit. Actually, I really love that big gaping mouth on the front of the Cobras, and it looks. I mean, it just looks like it's gulping up air, and so I'm not changing that. As you'll see, the perforation pattern, the metal mesh that I chose is very open, so it's a subtle change. I know a lot of people do this. There are several products in the market you can buy to do this. It was easy enough for me to do it myself, and kind of fun to do it as well. So that's part one and part two of the video. We'll kick it off. We'll start off with the hood scoop and then move into the grille assemblies. This is the Factory 5 hood scoop. It comes with a kit. It's an ABS. Looks good, very clean, and I would have probably used this if I hadn't decided to do something a little different with the hood scoop. I have kind of some changes I'd like to make to it. And instead of making those changes to this part here, I'm actually going to use this to mold a fiberglass hood scoop, which solves a couple problems for me. But one of the things it'll do is allow me to put some of these changes directly into the mold. So the part that I pull will be a more rigid part. I'll be able to add structure. I need to add structure. And it'll allow me to incorporate some of these design elements into a more finished looking part. The other advantage with the fiberglass is I can bond that directly to the fiberglass hood. It's very difficult to bond ABS to fiberglass. The two materials are significantly different. Not only just in the mechanical bond between the two, but they expand and contract at fairly radically different rates. The fiberglass does not move much across temperature. ABS does. So what you're going to see is me pulling a mold off of this and incorporating some of those other details I'm going to put into it. One of them is I'm adding venting. And I might be way off base on this, but I seem to remember years ago seeing a video of a Cobra being raced. I'm pretty sure it was a Factory 5, and I can't find this video. This was years and years and years ago I saw this, where something blew in the motor while under speed, and smoke came puffing out of the hood scoop. So that would suggest to me that air is not going in this scoop, air is actually coming out of the scoop at speed. Maybe those of you who have more experience in this can comment. Am I off base? I don't know. In any event, it would seem to me that putting some vents here would actually allow the air to kind of more naturally flow out of the engine compartment. So I'm going to do it regardless, one way or the other. I like the way it looks, and at least looks great in my head. So that's what we're going to do. This video is going to be, in part, making a fiberglass part from this ABS piece. While I'm waiting for this first of many coats of wax to dry, I'll kind of give you a quick outline my game plan here a little bit. So there are going to be some vents that are molding into this fiberglass piece, and one of the things that you could do is you could simply mold the fiberglass as it sits, as it would come out of this, and then cut those vent locations. But the problem you run into there is now you're relying on, once that fiberglass piece is finished, a paper template that you would simply, one side, and then flip it over, and the other side, you trace each one, and then you cut along those lines. The difficulty there is that you're not cutting on anything flat, so you really can't build a guide from which to cut. It would be a freehand and then a sanding kind of arrangement to get to that. The other way to do it is way I'm doing it, and I'm using this roll rubber. It's actually flooring, rubber flooring. It's super cheap. You can buy it at Home Depot for, a couple bucks a linear foot. It's nice because it glues pretty well. It's got some thickness. It's about a 1/16 thick. It's relatively flexible. So they're now part of the mold. So when I pull this fiberglass mold out, I'll have a perfect indentation, kind of a starting point to make my cuts. It also will give me a nicer radius entering into those cuts. So basically, I've given myself a guide to cut from that I know is absolutely perfect and absolutely symmetrical. That's integral to the part. But I'm also giving myself kind of a spot that'll better receive this perforated metal that's going to sit into this. So it's solving two problems, and I think the mold should release just fine. I don't have any negative drafts here, and I know that these parts are in where they need to be. So I'm going to continue waxing this, 2 more coats of wax, and then you're going to see me start to apply some fiberglass. So unlike my dash, I opted to use a gel coat when I'm pulling this part from a form. The gel coat will give me better detail around the edges and a lot better surface to sand from. I didn't have any gel coat, so I had to make up my own. So here's a quick little hack. You can take some polyester resin and mix it with a little bit of Bondo to thicken up. You get kind of a medium slurry, and that works really well as a gel coat. So once the gel coat's in place and cured, I will then start laying the fiberglass mat. You'll see that the gel coat did fight me a little bit. I think there was some debris, and when it cured up, it cured there were a couple little voids in it. But I knew going into this that I would probably be doing a fair amount of secondary work, certainly just to get the metal screens in place, so I wasn't too concerned about it. Now the fiberglass finally cured. I was a little off on my ratio on the hardener, so it didn't cure up as quickly as I had hoped. I had to apply a little heat, but it's rock solid now. I already did, full disclosure, I already did pop this out of the mold. I forgot to hit record. So here's where we are. This is the actual part, and as you can see here, that rubber insert I put in worked pretty nicely. Created a nice detail here to cut from. So these different colored pieces, this rougher area here will be removed. So I now have a nice clean line to cut in both cases. I do have some filling. Obviously you can kind of see right here, I didn't get great, the fiberglass didn't meet the mold as well as it should have here. I kind of knew I was going to have a problem on this corner, same on this corner to some extent. So after I trim this, I can kind of go back in and fill this in. There's going to be a fair amount of secondary work in this, but really the critical parts, the parts that would have been difficult to deal with, are really nice. This line here came out really crisp. The finish itself looks good, and very, very rigid. A lot more rigid than the original part here. So, happy with the result. So I ended up using the original paper templates as the starting point for my perforated mesh or perforated steel here. It's 16 gauge, so it's a bit of a challenge to cut with these hand snips. I definitely had a sore forearm after this, but cuts pretty quickly and cleanly. I'm not too concerned with the final edge here because I cut this knowing that this is then getting it kind of bent around, moved around a little bit, and then the final trimming will happen just before I put it into the fiberglass part. Well, here's where we are. You saw a lot of sanding. I still have, unfortunately, lots more sanding to do. This thing will also get a skim coat of filler and then sanded and then ready for paint. But you saw me bend these, kind of went old school on it, did it on the corner of my work surface here. Was able to get the radius pretty clean, so happy with the way that came out. But this is how these sit in here. When I'm done, they'll be a nice tight fit, but kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. Again, all painted in the same color, so I'm not trying to draw attention to the metal here. And give you a kind of a close-up. I was able to match the radius pretty closely, so this will kind of nest into there. You kind of see what it looks like there from the side. And, yeah, so that's where we are. And next step, more sanding and more sanding. So the mesh basically gets bonded to the fiberglass hood scoop with polyester resin, but you can't just use polyester resin by itself as an adhesive. It's actually a terrible adhesive, but it sticks to itself really well. So I used small sections of fiberglass mat that I overlaid on top of the perforated steel, and then soaked it with polyester resin. And this creates a really strong bond. I mean, ultimately, this perforated steel is going to be part of this hood scoop and a really good structural connection. But again, the difficulty was getting them to clamp tightly together. You see, I had to get creative with a series of hand spring clamps and then some weight on the center section with some pieces of steel. But in the end, I was able to get everything to press down nice and tightly, and it cured about as well as I could have hoped. Yeah, this one's got me. This one's got me pretty curious. The intent here obviously was to fiberglass these screens in place. The whole thing's going to be painted as one assembly, so I'm not going to have to mask anything. So I needed everything to be kind of in its one unit, and I got the perforated steel here bent to shape pretty closely, but I'm a little nervous with it kind of springing out of place. So when I fiberglassed it in, I had to put a lot of these clamps on it, and I'm hoping that it not only held fast but pressed tight against the scoop itself. So here we go. Let's see what the A side looks like here. There's still going to be obviously some cleaning up the edges here, but hey, that looks good. This is what. That's nice and tight. This is where I was concerned. I wanted to make sure the screen pressed hard against this edge right here, and it did all the way around. Nice. So, yeah, I don't think this could have come out any nicer. Very rigid, definitely not going anywhere. It's about a 1/4 inch of fiberglass here. This rib, I'm kind of asking a lot of this rib. I'm thinking about just the general day-to-day driving around banging it, but also like closing the hood. That's going to take a pretty serious abuse. So there's a little over a 1/4 inch of fiberglass here, and here. A little thinner along here, but again, this is going to be sanded flush and bonded right to the hood. So some more sanding, and ready for some coats of primer. So I'll wrap this video up here with a quick walk around of the hood scoop with a little bit of primer on it. This will give me a kind of a starting point to start the final sanding and prep for the paint. But you can see with it all painted the same color, it definitely takes on a pretty different look. But happy with the way it came out. You know, I like the way the perf metal kind of continues the shape of the hood scoop. It doesn't really change the shape, it just kind of adds a little detail to it. So there you have it. Time to move on to the next project. Comes to things like this, I really never know if it's going to work. Forming sheet metal and perforated metal to boot is tricky stuff, and I've had some success in the past. But so you know, the funny part is I don't know how this is going to go. The even funnier part is that I may have attempted to record this 4 times before, and you guys are only seeing the one that works. So let's see. That's not the case, by the way, but kind of funny to think about. So let's see if this actually works. This piece should be enough to clamp it down and kind of keep it tame. These screws are just enough to fit through these holes. And I put slop in these through holes so it can find a good path through without dinging up the metal too much. There's not a lot of science and stuff like that. That's for sure. Basically, you kind of pound on it until you get it into a shape you like, I guess. The real hard part is making sure you're not dinging up the metal when you're screwing through it like this, but I think that should be rigid enough. So let's give this a shot. Yeah, this is a point where I start playing some of that more canned music. Hey, I'm sorry about that. I wish I had a better selection for you guys, but hey, this is the stuff that's free. I'm not about to start paying for music. So I'd like to say sit back and enjoy, but I know you probably more like sit back and tolerate. So I ended up sparing you some of the hammering here, but pounding on these forms takes a toll on you. But all the parts are in place. All the grill parts are in place. You can see they're a press fit, so they kind of snap. They hold in place pretty tightly. So I got a good mechanical fit there. And then, as you can see here, right there, I've got a couple of tabs. So each one of these, I'm going to epoxy in at a couple of points here and there. I want to make sure they're removable. You know, I can imagine these parts at some point needing to be replaced with dents and things, or at the very least just repainted. And this is what it looks like from the front. I kind of went back and forth on the type of perforation I use up here. A lot of people use expanded metal. I think some of the ones you can buy aftermarket here are expanded metal. That stuff's a little easier to work. It's a little more open. In the end, I ended up going with the perforated steel, and it's a little harder to work for sure, but it'll paint nicer, and I think it'll kind of get closer to where I'm looking for my target cosmetically, I think. So yeah, so there we are. So as I've said a couple times now, I'm edging closer and closer to converting my shop here to a full-on body shop with some dust management and, well, I should say full-on temporary body shop. A few other things I have to do. The foot box, I'm going to finish that up. Got to work on my exhaust tips, and then courtesy lights in the trunk. Finish up some of the wiring there. But yeah, so this is kind of where we're at. And I think over the next couple of videos, you'll see me buttoning up some of these small things, and then on to Bondo.